howdy, y'all, and welcome to Liberty Libations. There's the sound of us getting started. What is everyone drinking tonight before we do the introduction? Zane, what do you got?
Well, last week went so well that I decided to upgrade to my actual bourbon. So I've got a bourbon and Coke here.
There we go.
All right.
There it is.
All right, Alden, what you drinking?
I've got Buffalo Trace and a Coors Light.
Love it. Steven?
I've got a Pilsner this time. 6 points. Yeah.
Okay.
And
And I've
then
got
I'm going
Macallan.
IPAs.
You're going IPAs. Got it. Well, I got Macallan. Cheers, everybody.
Nice. Cheers.
All right.
Oh, man. I've been waiting for that this week.
We are halfway through November, which means we're about, 9 weeks away from the Libertarian Convention, Libertarian Party of Georgia Convention in January. If anything we do or say or conspirize, is that a word?
Conspire.
Yeah.
No,
Conspirize.
we're not conspiring. We're talking about conspiracies. So what would that be?
We're conspirators.
Theorizing.
Yeah. Analyzing.
Conspirizing. I like conspirizing. Okay. If anything we say tonight intrigues you or you want to learn more about the Libertarian Party of Georgia, go to lpgeorgia.com. We have Mr. Zach Varnell on the screen now too. What's going on, dude?
Not much.
Welcome to the show.
A White Claw.
Yeah.
There we go. Perfect. Head on over to lpgeorgia.com. Let's add that to the screen. You can learn about what we're doing around Georgia to spread liberty. You can learn about where the affiliates are, where your local affiliate is, how to join the party, how to best to spread liberty in your immediate area. If you have any questions, you can reach out to anybody on the screen right now, except for Alden. Don't ever reach out to Alden.
I'll find it in like a year. Yeah.
There we go.
But if you want to conspiracize, you can reach out to me. Yeah.
Perfect. That's exactly right. You can email us at podcast@lpgeorgia.com, info@lpgeorgia.com, I believe. You can also message us on Twitter at lpgeorgia. The ticket price for the convention is $75 at this moment until December 6th. Then it jumps up to $85. Our speakers for the year for this convention are Spike Cohen, Shane Hazel, Sara Higdon, Adam Nutter, Edgar Mills. We've got the Tower Gang Pod, and we've got a 6-way presidential debate of all the Libertarian candidates who are vying for that presidential nomination. Anybody else got any news or anything that they know is coming to convention before we move on to the next thing?
I don't know if we've sufficiently hyped the debate yet, because I think that's what I'm most excited about, because Brad Binkley is going to be the moderator from the Propaganda Report. Used to be on, WSB with Monica Perez.
Yes.
And he has promised to make it fun and what was the other word?
Flirty.
Fun. It was experimental. That's it. Fun and experimental.
Wow. Conspiracizing.
There's probably going to be some of that.
I love it. Brad Binkley.
I have no idea what to expect, so I'm
that's cool.
Most excited about that. I think.
So we're going to figure out who would win in a Jello wrestling match, right?
I think that's how they do a tiebreaker at the end. If there's a tie, there's a Jello pit right next to the stage. Well, that's exciting because I love Brad Binkley. He's been on the show a couple times. He's coming on the show early January to help spread the news, spread awareness about the convention. So, who all's our nominations or our candidates? Zach, do we know?
Let's see. Mike Termott, Joshua Smith, Chase Oliver, Michael Rechtenwald, Lars Mapstead.
Okay.
And Jacob Hornberger.
There.
So
that's Hornberger's in?
I forgot Hornberger's in. Is that bad?
Yeah, he's our first sponsor.
Interesting. So. All right. Well, Jacob Hornberger, welcome. I think we've hyped the convention enough. We'll have 10 more times to hype it before convention actually starts. So let's get into our first story. So y'all, this past week, Antifa came to town and decided to wreck some private property.
There you go. The cop blockers.
the cop blockers.
Because it went from Stop Cop City to Block Cop City. And,
did it really? It went
Oh,
to
yes.
Block Cop City?
Yeah, those are the signs now. That's how you know it's the commies, because they're trying to block it. So
course they
I
are.
will call them the cop blockers.
Okay. Well, for those who don't know, Cop City is this giant training ground that's being built in southeast Atlanta. And basically, I personally am very much against it. I am definitely not for the violence and the burning of concrete trucks to stop it from happening. However, it is intended to be a training ground to have a more militarized police, which is not what you want in the United States of America.
Or
Oddly
anywhere,
enough,
probably.
the training ground for the militarized police is in the street in front of the training ground.
Perfect. Yes. Yeah. They're really giving them some good practice before it opens. That is so funny. Sorry, got a text. That's my bad. So yeah, the other night on Wednesday, Antifa militants claimed responsibility for torching the concrete company trucks to prevent construction of a police training facility near Atlanta. The acts of violence are part of the ongoing protest known as Stop Cop City, which apparently is Block Cop City, which has resulted in the criminal indictment of 61 Antifa militants on RICO charges and dozens more on domestic terrorism charges. So it's really hard, I think, for libertarians to walk this line right now, because while we don't want the militarization of police, we definitely don't want any of these dum-dums to get charged with domestic terrorism either. So it's a really weird line to walk. What are y'all's thoughts?
Well, just walk on the sidewalk while this is going on and reimburse one of your friends for lunch or glue and see what happens. It'd be interesting.
Yeah. Grumpy asks, why private property? That's a great question. Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to bring that up
Probably
too.
can't tell a difference between private property and state property because they're not extremely consistent, such as we are all here. But the thing about violent tactics is that they just don't work. Like setting aside the morality of it, which is a whole other can of worms. If you're protesting the construction of a cop training facility in a way that would cause a normal person to believe that a cop training facility is necessary in order to stop the violent protests, that is not a good idea.
We don't want violence.
There you go. And whatever happened to the old, if it's really about the environment, because that's the primary argument that's gained the most traction thus far. They don't want the deforestation, they don't want the pollution of the creek nearby, from all the grading work, all the earth moving, which I'll circle back to that. But the old tactic is chain yourself to the tree. They can't knock down the tree without hurting you, so therefore they can't do it, and then you're really in the way. Why do you have to hurt all these other people's property? And then not only that, but why do you have to give the police the exact reason they need to militarize?
Yeah, that's what Zane seems to be kind of echoing as well. Yeah.
I mean,
the mixed message of go ahead, Jake.
No, go for it.
It's just saying you don't want this because you don't want militarized police because you don't want more violent police, and then taking violent measures to oppose it is just oxymoronic, and like you said, just like it's only fanning the flames and giving more cause or more reason, more ammunition, for them to say this is why we have this.
And I found an old article earlier in the week because I've been saying from the get-go that the Clean Water Act, environmental protection regulations, is going to be what unravels this whole thing. That if this really is going to be peeled back, it's not going to be under the guise that we don't need more police or the police don't need more funding or they don't need more training. That's not going to gain traction, especially with government people, because government is their religion. Bureaucracy is their religion. It is their job. So normally if you're running a business, you have to run it efficiently. If you can get more work done with fewer people and less money, pat on the back, you're successful, you get to reap the benefits. Whereas if you're a government or a bureaucrat, government employee, it's your job to grow the size and scope of your company, whether or not you're actually worth it. And if you lose money, that's actually okay, because then you can justify asking for a larger budget. So they must have known early on that the Clean Water Act would be the one thing that could unravel this whole thing. So the USGS, the United States, Geodetic Service, they had a sediment monitoring device about 500-600 feet away from the site that was in that creek. And then once they actually started the earth moving work, they removed this thing back in May. They have not been measuring sedimentation levels in that creek. They're not even complying with the Clean Water Act because they know it would undo them.
Yeah, exactly.
Because there's no way, by the way, this is why the private sector has been choked out. There's no way you can comply with all the regulations. And the government knows this better than anybody. Geological Survey. Thank you.
There you go.
But
Interesting.
Government knows better than anybody. There's no way to comply with all their own red tape. So they have to remove the mechanisms to.
And they know it's better to make the case of oops, we should have had a device rather than here's the data of like you're in violation of the rule or whatever. Like,
right. Yeah. And they always do it so silently, so quietly, not telling, like, no one's ever going to know. It's always something that just slips between the cracks that no one will ever pay attention to.
Right.
Oh man. Zach, let's watch this video that Andy No posted. For those who don't know Andy No, you should go follow him on Twitter. He's phenomenal. Well, he's a good reporter. He doesn't have great ideas most of the time, but he's a good reporter.
Being deployed in the crowd. We saw makeshift weapons being brought forth, bolt cutters. We saw individuals putting on gas masks. We saw individuals donning plastic coverings across their body. We saw individuals doing things that we knew were indicative of professional protesters and anarchists that they do prior to encountering police efforts to just
pause it right there.
Crowd.
Why are they dragging anarchists into this? That is so frustrating.
Yeah. We need a new name
gas mask people are just afraid of COVID.
Seriously though, like 2 years ago, all of that would have been acceptable, minus maybe the bolt cutters.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
so when you say anarchist, especially in libertarian circles, you have to differentiate between suit and tie or blue hair.
Yeah.
And even then there's gray area, you know.
And I always argue that anarchy and chaos are completely mistaken for each other. Like chaotic agents are not anarchists. Like it just like if you're an anarchist and you're committing violence against somebody, you're not a freaking anarchist. Like you're just a douchebag who hurts people.
There's a very important difference between the idea of governance in general and the state. All it means to be an anarchist is that the state as an institution is illegitimate. It does not mean that we reject all forms of governance. Like throughout history, there's all sorts of kinds of governance structures, like the family, the church, the company, if you want to think of the employment relationship in that sort of way. Mm-hmm. So there. And that's not even to get into the concept of how private law enforcement competing judges who issue opinions, that can all happen without the state. And the boomer con take of, oh well, you don't like the cops, that means you're an anarchist and you want to go spray paint everywhere and cut down fences with bolt cutters and throw Molotov cocktails. That really completely misses the rich tradition of anarchist thought that has nothing to do with that.
The only thing I would do different if there weren't cops would just be drive a little faster. That's like the only thing I'd do different because, as someone who, aligns more with the true concept of anarchy is like I govern myself and like I go by more like community sort of, guidelines. And like if you get into a certain area of this, there are still consequences to actions. It just doesn't need the state to, do them. And I don't necessarily also want to have like Wild West type, duels in the street kind of thing to solve things necessarily. Maybe sometimes.
Sometimes.
If someone really doesn't.
Consensual, yeah.
Both parties agree.
Yeah. Antifa says, or Grumpy Dome says Antifa cannot be anarchist. They are communists. 100%.
So those things, they fight each other.
Yeah, I mean the one of the funniest things is when people call themselves an ANCOM, an anarcho-communist.
What is a complete contradiction?
And I'm a Jewish Nazi.
Well, don't you know
I
Ben
can play this
Shapiro
game
is a
too.
Jewish Nazi? Like
Yeah.
I know a lot of Jewish Nazis these days. Dave Smith, Jewish Nazi. Robbie
there we go.
Bernstein, Jewish Nazi.
It's called a Zelensky.
There we go. Let's go to Jack Posobic's post just so people can see what these riots were all about. Before you hit play, actually, Alden, you were talking about driving faster. Make sure we're releasing a episode this week. Our guest on Free Georgia Podcast couldn't make it on Monday, so we're releasing it tomorrow at noon. Make sure you tune in because it affects every Georgian. Alden, doesn't affect you so much, but it affects that driving that you were.
I drive in Georgia a lot. So.
Yeah, so it will affect you. It's a super interesting episode. James Dutton came on, and he's a lawyer based out of Spalding County. And he is taking a case all the way to the Supreme Court right now. And
For the plate readers?
For the plate readers in school zones.
Oh, yeah. I told you guys there was a class action.
Yep. And he's the one. And so he came on the podcast. We talked for about 45 minutes, and he just laid it all out there. I mean, the details of it will astound you. So just tune in tomorrow, noon.
Yeah.
The podcast will be out in audio form tomorrow morning, so you can listen to it then too as well if you want.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm excited for that one because like Elizabeth opened my eyes to all the plate readers around here. Like, you know, with the Banished Big Brother project, she pointed it out on the Facebook group, and now I've realized that I'm surrounded by them. I can't go anywhere. I can't leave my house to go to the grocery store without going by a couple of them.
Yeah.
I mean, the craziest part of the ones that he talks about in this lawsuit is that they're owned by a private company that is based in Georgia that reaps the majority of the profits from the funds.
Spalding County, I think it's, don't quote me on this, is like 60%.
It's 66%.
This reminds me
of the local government only gets a third of that.
Yep.
This reminds me of the same like pattern, the same dichotomy as the Patriot Act, and then it's like, oh, everyone needs to have these body scanners, and and then it's like,
there's
oh,
other correlations to it. There's other correlations to it too. He talked about how like the name of the company that puts these in is like the Child Safety Protection Company or something like that. And it's like, give me a break.
Yeah, right. The Save Our Children Company.
Yeah.
Get out of here. Yeah.
Yeah. He mentioned that in Spalding County, where they implemented this everywhere in Georgia, but in Spalding County, in the history of school zones, there hasn't been a child killed. There hasn't even been a child hurt in a school zone by a car. Yet they implemented this law
in the whole state.
In his county.
In the county, okay.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to see if they ever stopped an Amber Alert with one of these things, ever, anywhere.
Interesting. That's still not a good use for it, but
I get it. But that's been the narrative. If it saves one life, if it saves one child.
Yeah.
But even then, you could turn them on when there's an Amber Alert rather than running them 24/7.
There you go. Exactly. All right, let's see what these riot protesters idiots were doing on Tuesday, maybe. Look at these.
So
militarized police right there. There you go.
Yeah.
This is what they're training for. This is what they want to build a life-size model of like downtown to practice in.
So they keep moving.
And then here comes the protesters. Look at this.
So the march is just moving. The riot police are moving shields in now.
This guy's narrating like an idiot.
Yeah.
There's now the march.
What is he narrating for?
I want to just like dub over like a football game.
He's the play-by-play guy.
Rubber bullet gun.
A rubber bullet gun?
Get back.
I mean, this is wild, dude.
So
I was,
and what the police are doing right here too. This is ridiculous.
Agreed.
This is like, look, two cops could go around and flank that line, and like, there's probably two guys that are pushing that mostly.
Yep.
And you take a stick and you ram it up in that guy's armpit, and you just walk him off to the side and beat his ass.
Also,
and it's all over.
What Antifa
doing?
is really doing here is just the brotherly shove.
I mean, the funny thing is, like, I have steered clear of this area since this whole thing began because I didn't want anything to do with it. But the other night we had an event down at this film studio that's nearby, and the number of cops that are on this street just sitting there 24/7 is bananas. They're there all the time. There's tons of them. They're decked out in gear like this, and they're just not doing anything. They're just standing there for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. So I don't. This road goes to nowhere. It's just a long road through the woods. Like it's absurd.
There we go.
Anything's
There we
happening
go.
here. There we go. Yeah, there's the tear
Yeah.
gas.
Well,
Yeah.
no, the bean bags, the bean bags with the shot or the rubber bullets with the shotgun.
There we go. Yeah.
You remember the Occupy Wall Street movement?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh man, I remember some street video of some hematomas after that when the rubber bullets came out.
Those things are no joke. Grumpy
Yeah.
says Antifa was more organized than the police. It's very true. Antifa looked like storming the castle in Lord of the Rings.
That was
Like-
just gonna say. I was thinking of the
I mean,
same
is this
thing.
the admin shift? Like what? They're in full retreat after like 10 seconds of moderate resistance.
It's so funny. I want to know what these press people are, who they are, like what they're doing, if they're any good, why they're there.
The weird thing about all the press people was if you go back to the beginning of the video where the Antifa guys had like their front with the banner in front of them and all of them behind them, all the reporters were in front of the banner in between the protesters and the police.
Yeah. Right there. Just about to get shoved, and there's a cop right there.
Yeah.
It's so weird, man. Can you imagine, like, if you were like actually in a war and you just had a journalist in your face taking pictures? Like,
Gee whiz.
that's so dumb.
Well, hey, Keisha Lance Bottoms. If you want to really quell this riot, how about you leverage President Biden to give a pardon to a Proud Boy named Rufio Panman? I'm pretty sure there's a pair of sunglasses that are still in orbit from one of these Antifa twerks. That one guy would take out that whole line. I promise.
Interesting. Okay. I've
Wearing
That Antifa move was reminding me a lot of the Georgia offense under Jim Chaney, where they run it right up the middle every play.
There you go. Hey, if you want proof, these Antifa guys went to Georgia Tech. They're running a triple option.
There. Perfect. What were you saying, Zach?
During the Summer of Love, there was Antifa wearing press stuff a lot, so that they, felt like they were immune to getting arrested or getting beat by the cops or whatever, because, where they're wearing this shield of like, I'm press.
Right.
So before long, I guess the cops caught on to that, but it makes me wonder, like how many actual journalists are getting caught up in that thanks to them,
I mean, you don't need anything to create press credentials. Like all you need is that freaking
a lanyard
that you wear and a lanyard that you can print off the internet. Because you know how I know that? Because I did it so that I could get free baggage when I fly places.
Hey, go to Granger, get a safety vest, and just carry a clipboard and just talk with authority.
And carry a ladder too.
Yeah. Hey, you can't be here. And they, oh, sorry. Oh.
This is presumably when you fly places like with camera gear, like for a documentary, not just like going anywhere. Like,
what is that formation, Alden? What is that? The phalanx formation?
A phalanx? I don't know.
Yeah, the phalanx. That was that Greek or Hittites that pioneered that?
I think it was like the Romans.
I think of the movie 300.
That's what.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, that's kind of what I thought it would have been.
Yeah.
All right, so this is what the burning of
It was Gerald Butler,
of the trucks looked
or
like.
Gerard
Butler, yeah. So this is what the burning of the trucks looked like. There aren't many pictures of it. I searched and finally just had to create an AI thumbnail of our video for today because this was the only crap photo that I could find. Yeah, and I'm not even positive this is from Atlanta, but this is what somebody
We'll
posted.
go with it.
We'll go with it. So I don't know, y'all. It's getting weird in Atlanta. Like we said, libertarians, I don't think are a fan of Cop City going in.
No,
but the way it's being protested and the reasons for the protest from these people is just idiotic. And
here's something too. If this is truly for environmental concerns, what's to stop you from going along that creek 500,000 feet from the site and putting in your own sediment monitor?
If it's about
obviously not. You don't set
environmental
concrete trucks on fire.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Environment.
That's what I was.
Oh, let's melt the roads. Jeez.
Yeah, no, it's all stupid. Anybody else got anything left to say about this one?
I mean, this is just the general pattern of how I feel about most things, where I'm opposed to the original thing, but then I'm opposed to how someone goes about it. Even though I'm opposed to the first one, I don't like how they go about it, and then I'm opposed to the reaction that gets, and it's this escalation game.
Yeah,
and that's
Does
why I'm
civil asset
opposed.
forfeiture apply to trust funds?
Ooh,
Man.
Those are all words I don't
If they
know.
did, Antifa would vanish. I promise.
yeah, but
But-
then the state would have that, and they would just use it.
Well,
to
yeah, no, I'm not
utilize
advocating
us.
that. I'm just saying if it did, they would be gone.
That's very true.
Before we
Alden,
move
you're,
on,
you're exactly right, because like I don't like Cop City. I don't like opposing Cop City by lighting cement trucks on fire.
Right.
I don't like people getting charged with domestic terrorism for
Right.
setting cement trucks on fire.
right? Yeah,
Exactly.
there's 3 strikes right there. Like all
This is-
oppose each other. Like
This is why libertarians are always right. Like all these dum-dums are doing something wrong, and we're just sitting here like, y'all
you're all
are-
wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, just do what we say, and everything will be fine.
They're even wrong about being right. You know what I mean? You're wrong in how you're right.
And that's the defining line, right, between an activist communist and a non-compliant anarchist is
And a
that
Nazi
right there,
Jew.
the initiation of force. You know, there will be a non-violent mass compliance when the true anarchists actually just sit down and say no more.
I think there was a movie about
Yeah.
a Nazi Jew actually with Ryan Gosling called like The
Well, I think there's a
Believer.
Blumhouse movie about an Amish assassin too. So
A Janist assassin, that would be better.
Alden, what were you about to say before we move on?
Oh, I think it was Grumpy that had said something. I don't know if he meant it like as a joke or tongue in cheek or not, but when he was talking about like the Antifa all being feds or whatever, I was going to ask if we think that are any
Yes, 100%.
actually.
I think it's
plants or
actually
whatever.
been. I think it's actually been proven that there have been. I think J6 is one of the times that it was
I
proven.
assumed so even with before hearing
Occupy
it,
Wall
but-
Street movement. Andrew Breitbart was blowing the lid off of that before he was heart attacked.
Heart attacked. Yeah.
Yeah. Notice I used
That's
that
a
as-
rough attack too. That's kind of kills you.
Right.
Is
I
getting
use
your
that as a
heart
verb
attack.
and not a noun. Just take notice of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they were very well planted because how did they get so organized? How did they get so plugged in? How do they get funding? How do they coordinate? How do they train like this?
Yeah.
And they probably
you know-
build organic
'Cause
following.
back in my day, the commies just stayed in mom's basement on their keyboard.
where they
But now
belong.
they're
Ways
dictating
more
policy
suitable.
because they set something on fire.
Yep.
So actually,
this
on
is
this
super.
Go
I was just
ahead.
gonna say, there's a really old video of like the G6 or something in Toronto, and they grab some guy and pull him behind the police lines to arrest him, and he's on the ground, and him and the cops are wearing the exact same boots, like to a T.
What were you about to say, Zane?
So the thing about like a far left groups being infiltrated by feds is something that those groups know about. Like going all the way back to the 60s, there was a far left group called the Weather Underground organization, and they were doing
Yes.
all sorts of violent stuff.
Hmm.
And they kept getting infiltrated by feds, and that made them very irritated. So what they would do to make it as hard as possible to get infiltrated was that as a condition of membership, you had to go to these like 12-hour-long struggle sessions where they would like commit psychological torture on each other for like days on end, with the point being the only way that you would possibly go through all of that is if you were a true believer, and if you were
And-
fed, you would just get fed up and leave.
And now, oddly
And-
enough,
and
Bill
the-
Ayers, their leader at the time, Bill Ayers is a college professor.
Oh, yeah. He's
So-
teaching-
And a big
teaching all
Obama
these
supporter.
things.
Now we know the recipe for a cult.
Right.
Perfect.
Yeah.
See, the modern libertarian equivalent of this is our 2-hour-long executive committee meetings where we bicker over our policy manual.
Yes, you're 100% correct. I agree with you. If anybody can suffer through that, then they deserve to be in the Libertarian Party for life.
Yeah. It all depends on what your definition of is. Okay.
Now I'm really confused.
That was Bill Clinton's argument during his perjury trial for Monica Lewinsky.
Oh,
Oh, good God.
That unraveled the whole. That's why none of it stuck, was because no one could define is.
It depends on your definition of sexual act.
Yeah, yeah. That was his Johnny Cochran moment. You know, if the glove don't fit, you must acquit.
All right, y'all. It's time. Here we go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is Libations Trivia. The categories for today are This Day in History, Random Questions because Jake was tired, and Russian Writing.
How did we end up with the Russian writing?
Because I did the third one before the second round, and the third round
you
is
blindfold
much harder.
yourself and then you cough while you have the pen on the paper.
There we go. That's exactly it.
Isn't that something people can major in college, like Russian literature specifically?
Oh yeah, big time.
I think Bert Kreischer did.
That took
Now I get it.
Oh yeah, the machine.
Yeah. Now I get it.
All right. Alden is now climbing the leaderboard. He's coming after Zane.
Ooh.
12-5 to 4-3 to 2-1. Zane still equals about what everybody else has total. So I don't think there's any chance that anybody's going to catch up to Zane soon. It'll take at least 7 weeks for that to happen. But Alden's climbing. All
we should
right.
make him post a few episodes.
There we go. Question number 1 of round 1. On this day in 1907, which territory became the 46th state in the United States? Alden.
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma is correct.
Bang.
Nice.
Sorry.
Nice. Yeah, exactly.
It's the score. All right. Question number 2. On this day in 1959, which play based on a highly successful World War II film premieres on Broadway? Zane.
South Pacific.
No. Zach.
Sound of Music.
Sound of Music is
Wow.
correct.
Nice.
Hang on, I forgot. I didn't put
The
Zach
play
on
was
here.
based on the film?
Play was based on the film.
Okay.
All right. Question number 3. On this day in 1849, which legendary Russian author was sentenced to death? Zach.
Dostoevsky. It's the only Russian.
Not how you pronounce it.
got
I
it.
was just gonna say.
Oh,
All right.
I was
It's
just
the
gonna
only Russian
say.
I know.
Who pronounces it better should win because we were all going to say the same name. So
All right. So
I'm
he was sentenced to death, but at the last minute, his execution was stayed, and he was on trial for allegedly being involved in anti-government activities.
Anti-government activities. That's all they said.
That's all it was.
That's all they need to say, I guess.
Yeah. And it's pronounced Dostoevsky, just so everybody knows.
I heard no difference.
I heard a major difference. You sounded like a crazy person. All right, question number 4. On this day in 2001, which film based on a series of books was released bearing a striking resemblance to Star Wars? Alden.
Wait a minute, that just threw me off. But I was going to say Harry Potter.
Harry Potter is correct.
I was like, the Star Wars thing threw me off, but
dude, if you hear somebody just recite the plots to those two, the first Star Wars movie and the first Harry Potter movie, you're like, oh my gosh, like she just completely ripped off Star Wars.
That's interesting.
Every time people are like, oh, the plots of these two things are exactly the same, I'm never really impressed by it because it's always people just being incredibly vague about what the plot points are. And it's like at the end of the day, most stories are some variation of the hero's journey.
Fed.
Zane, do you read Joseph Campbell?
No.
Never mind. Perfect.
Great segue.
Yeah.
On this day in 2006, which Nobel Prize winning economist died at the age of 94? Alden.
Milton Friedman.
Milton Friedman is correct. How about that? All right.
I was really tempted to say Jackie Chan, but I'm like, I actually have a guess. So I didn't want to ruin my guess. I'm glad I didn't.
On this day in 1973, the Trans-Alaska Pipeline Authorization Act was signed by Richard Nixon. How long was the completed pipeline? You each get one guess. Closest gets it. Steven.
2,400 miles.
Okay. Zach?
5,280 miles.
Okay. Alden?
4,000 miles.
Zane?
1,500 miles.
Zane wins by a mile.
By many miles.
800 miles is the correct answer. It goes
See,
from the far north of Alaska down to the far south of Alaska.
I always just I play, if I'm going like third, I just play off of the numbers that I'm hearing. So like it doesn't even, logic is out the window with it. I don't know.
Price is Right rules.
Yeah.
I'm also going to point out that Alden put his hand up before you had even asked the question.
I know, and I was gonna say a much smaller number.
I didn't think Alden was going to guess the number. I thought he was trying to guess some other question that I wasn't actually asking because I hadn't finished the question yet.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to call on you. On this day in 1776, which government became the first foreign government to recognize the United States of America? Zane.
It's odd that this is a this day in history question again, because we definitely had this question already at some point in the past, but the answer is Morocco.
You're incorrect.
What?
So this was specifically worded this time. It's different. Steven.
France.
Incorrect. Zach.
The Philippines.
No. Alden.
I've heard this somewhere, and it's a country I don't even know of enough to like recall this information. So I quit.
Okay, so it's not a country. It was an independent, we'll say, city-state at the time. And Zach was the closest with an island nation. And I will give you, there are 3 possible answers because they're, Zach, go.
I wanted to hear the rest of the hint, but I'll go
Okay.
Singapore.
Incorrect.
Also, not an island, right?
Also
I don't
not
think.
around in 1776.
I don't know things. All right.
Steven.
Ceylon.
No.
Are you going to finish the hint?
I was just saying there are 3 possible names for it based on exact locality and small region around it. It's the hardest question of probably this whole thing.
I mean,
After Zane and Alden answer one more time, then I get to give one more hint.
I miss the days when we could just yell stuff out at a certain point.
yeah.
I'm
You have 5 seconds to answer, Zane.
I've got nothing.
Alden?
Is it a group of islands or one island?
I'm not. This isn't question and answer.
Is
time.
it an archipelago or an island chain?
Shut your mouth and answer. Are you going to give up right now?
It's Hawaii. I don't know.
Incorrect. It was owned by the Netherlands.
What?
Steven?
The Bahamas.
No. No one knows?
I really
Hey.
think it's a name I don't know.
Curacao?
No. And
Epstein Island. Oh no.
All right, I'm gonna have to give y'all the answer.
Yeah.
That
See, yeah, what is that? Where is that?
Eustachius. It's in the West Indies or
Oh.
Lesser Antilles.
The Lesser Antilles.
I know
yeah.
the Lesser Antilles name. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that
That's
pronounced
like body
Saint or
parts.
Sint?
I said Eustachius is what I said, but who the frick knows, man? That is a crazy name. It's not its own government anymore. It was owned by the Netherlands. It's part of the West Indies and all that.
That's
fun stuff.
yeah.
Here we go.
Deep cuts.
Next question. Question number 8. On this day in 1988, which country declared independence from the USSR? Zach.
Estonia.
Estonia.
Oh wow,
is
nice.
correct.
Wow.
I'm definitely the
Coming
best
in.
guesser of the group.
Zach's coming
Which,
in
by the way, I've
strong.
been told that Estonia is the closest thing to a modern day constitutional republic as we were originally founded.
Really?
All right, let's
Yeah.
pack our bags. Let's go.
You can get an e-citizenship, like a remote worker citizenship there. Just be a citizen without ever visiting.
Wow.
I'll go visit. I'll earn my citizenship. Let's see. On this day in 1945, which branch of the United Nations was founded? Zane.
The The General Assembly.
Incorrect. Zach?
The March of Dimes.
No. Steven?
NATO.
No. Alden?
It's like a huge acronym thing. Oh my god!
I heard Hugh Jackman, but
it's a Hugh Jackman thing. No, huge acronym thing or whatever. It's like 5 or 6 stupid letters, and no one cares. And I hate my life. I can't remember anything.
Definitely, no one cares. That's
Yeah,
for sure.
the UN. This is I've killed so many brain cells in my life. I can't remember things anymore.
Alden, you have 5 seconds. 4.
EUHADPT.
Incorrect.
Damn it! How close was
Open
I?
back up to the floor. Y'all have
Do we
10
get a
seconds.
hint?
No, there's no hints. Zane?
UNICEF.
Incorrect.
Is that part of NATO or a part of UN?
It's like the
Yes,
UN.
it
is. Is it
Children's
really?
Fund.
My
It's like
dad had
the
to go
UN
trick-or-treating for
Children's
him in the early
Fund.
50s.
Wow.
UNICEF has done actually some okay things around the world. They're still just stupidly overfunded and bureaucratic mess, but otherwise they do some good things.
Can I get a couple more guesses if nobody else has one?
If no one else has a guess, Zane gets one more, and then it's
Sure.
over. Zane?
The WHO.
No. Steven?
The Red Cross.
No. Zach? Alden? Y'all got anything?
I don't know anything about the UN.
Yeah, I'd make a point not to.
All right.
I'm going to be mad when I see it because I know I'm going to recognize it. Yes,
Oh my
damn it.
I thought y'all would get that one. That one's surprising. All right. Question number 10. On this day in 1940, one of the largest Jewish ghettos was created in what town? Zane?
Warsaw.
Warsaw, Poland is correct. Okay. After one round, Alden and Zach are tied for 3.
Zach.
Zane has 2. Steven and the audience have a big fat 0, even though the audience has been just flinging out answers, getting them all wrong. Y'all, okay, here we go. Round number 2, random trivia, because I couldn't think of a actual topic for round
This is my
2.
time to shine right here.
Yeah.
This is random chat GPT Jake verified trivia. Question number 1. In Greek mythology, who is the goddess of wisdom, warfare, and crafts? Zane?
Athena.
Athena is correct.
Yep.
Steven, you're really shining right now.
Yeah.
Way to
I
shine.
tried. He beat me.
Yeah, he's just
I knew
fast.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Zane's also fast and smart. So.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I might
Question
be old,
number
but I'm
2.
slow.
I read all of like Rick Riordan's like Greek mythology. He had 2 pentologies, and I read all of them. So I would
Nice.
hope I would know a question that easy about
I
it.
didn't understand any of those words.
Fair enough. I didn't either. All I heard was
Yeah.
gibberish.
What's Greek?
No, we're not going anywhere. No, stop.
It all
Question number
depends on
2.
what your definition of is.
All right. Question number 2.
I just took a sip of beer and almost choked.
Which country is the largest producer of coffee in the world? Zane?
Brazil.
How did you know that?
Because it's
Well,
huge.
I figured what's a really big country in an equatorial region?
Yeah.
And
You
Brazil
thought
was
that
it.
in 0.13 seconds?
They control
did.
most of the latitude. Yeah.
Whatever.
I still haven't processed that.
That was going to be my guess, too. I was just, again, slower than Zane.
Question
Well, I
number
did so
3.
poorly in round 1. I needed to really turn it on in round 2.
I thought it was going to be Greece. Yeah.
All right. Question number 3. What is the smallest bone in the human body? Gosh, I think it was Alden.
I'll take it if everyone agrees, because I don't know.
I think it was
Sure.
Alden. I think it was
I
Alden,
don't-
Zane, Steven, Zach.
There's a little bone in your ear that vibrates, and I don't know the name of it.
That's
Friggin'
all I
name
know,
it.
too.
That's all.
The ear bone. The
ear bone's
The
connected
ear bone.
to the head bone.
Incorrect. Zane.
The stirrup.
He is such a douchebag. It's the stapes bone, also known as the stirrup bone.
Is it in the ear? It is in the
It
ear.
is in the
It
ear.
is in the ear.
I was going with cochlea, so
Well, that's in there, but it's not
That's
a bone.
in there.
yeah.
That was a great guess, though. What Roman numeral represents the number 500? Alden.
I'm gonna just say
5,
Z.
4. Incorrect. Steven.
I tried to just beat Zane, but I don't know it.
It's not C. Oh God.
Oh wait, can we? Is it one letter, or can you build it out of other?
It's one letter.
Oh, then I don't know. Because I'll get there.
Steven, you have 5 seconds.
Okay.
You'll get there if you can just say the I 500 times.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with A.
Incorrect. Zane.
D.
D is
Damn it.
correct.
D for damn it.
Yeah.
Goodness gracious.
I'm gonna need another beer. I'm anger drinking.
So in order to write really big numbers using Roman numerals, because the highest letter they have is for 1,000. So if you wanted to write I can't remember if it's for 10 of them or it's for 1,000 of them. So if you wanted to write the number 1,000,000 in Roman numerals, instead of having to write the letter M 1,000 times, you can just put a horizontal line over the M, and that multiplies it by 1,000. So 5,000 could be V with a horizontal line over the top.
Interesting.
Ah,
Okay. I like that.
okay.
Number 5. What is the largest organ inside the human body? I can't tell who got it. I think Steven got it, but I'm not sure. Does everybody agree?
By saying inside, but the largest organ in the human body is the skin.
I said
Yeah, that's what I
inside.
was thinking, but he said
Yeah.
inside.
Okay, so inside, I'm gonna go small intestine.
Incorrect. Zane.
The lungs.
No. Alden.
Liver.
Alden got it correct. It is
Mine's-
the
I was going to say
Especially
the
the-
inside of your skin.
You know, if you take all the veins in the human body and stretch them out end to end, that person is dead.
All right. After 2 rounds, Zane has jumped to the front with 10. Alden has 5, and Zach has 3. Golden Flame said bones.
Oh man.
All right. And Brian, welcome to the show, brother. All right. Round number 3. Definitely not easy if you don't know Dostoevsky, but here we go. What is the name of the book considered to be his masterpiece, Alden?
War and Peace.
Incorrect. Zane.
Crime and Punishment.
Crime and Punishment is correct.
War. What is it good for?
All right.
Russian novels have a naming scheme that are very similar to a lot of libertarian books, where it's just a list of nouns: war and peace,
Thing
crime
and
and
thing.
punishment,
Yeah.
man, economy, and state.
I had already forgotten that this was going to be about literature, and I thought it was going to be about Cyrillic. Like
What is
actual
that?
Russian
Oh,
writing.
Russian
That's why,
writing.
that's why I made the joke about yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh.
Yeah, that's good.
Good.
There's the obligatory Jackie Chan.
Nice.
There we go.
Thank you.
Jackie
Grumpy.
and Chan.
All
you just
right.
need a 9/11 and a malinvestment now.
All right. Question number 2. Instead of being executed, what was Dostoevsky's punishment for being involved with anti-government intellectuals? I believe it was Zane.
Let's go with exilement.
Incorrect. Steven.
Flogging.
No. Alden. Zach.
Banking.
What? Incorrect.
They made him think. What?
He said bank.
Spanking. He got spanked.
Spanking.
Banking. Oh,
Wait a minute. I thought you said banking.
I thought he said banking too.
I thought he said thinking. Like I'm thinking. Like I
did-
didn't know.
You sell mutual funds now. This is your punishment.
Alden, you got one?
Road cleanup.
No.
You're saying that he got the Lightning McQueen punishment?
Zach.
Sent to Siberia.
You know, I'm going to give it to you.
That feels like.
Hard labor in Siberia.
Oh, all right. You know what? That's as close as any of us were gonna get. So.
Which includes flogging, by the way.
Well, it includes.
But did he
it is-
clean roads in Siberia?
Yeah, I know. That's why I had to think for yours. Cleaning wasn't hard enough. All right. Final question. No one can win but Zane. You're all fighting for, well, Steven's fighting for pride. The audience is fighting for nothing. and Alden's fighting.
I stopped fighting for Pride years ago.
Yeah, I'm not
All right.
fighting.
Which of Dostoevsky's novels depicted the main character as having epilepsy, which Dostoevsky also had? Alden.
War and Peace.
No.
That wasn't even by
He
Dostoevsky.
didn't write War and Peace. Stephen.
Crime and
You already
Punishment.
said I lost.
Incorrect. Zane.
The Idiot.
The Idiot is correct. There you have
That's
it.
how I.
All right, y'all.
Who wrote War and Peace?
Tolstoy.
Tolstoy.
Who
wrote War
who
and
was
Peace.
also an anarchist philosopher, by the way.
Nice.
There you go. And then who was the Jewish guy that got locked up in a gulag?
Was he a Nazi?
Ciesieslki.
Maimonides, but then he adopted the name Rambam, right?
I don't know anything about that.
Yeah.
You sound crazy.
I heard Rambam, and I need another
Yeah.
beer. 1 second.
You said Rambam, and you
Yeah.
lost all credibility in my eyes.
Not a single Ayn Rand question.
Oh man, I gotta take a drink before we get to this next topic because it's gonna be fun.
Gulp.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, we kind of gotta wait for Alden to get back too because he's gonna want to be around for the beginning of this. So yeah, that makes Zane he has 13 now, which is super unfortunate for everybody else. We're gonna have to have like an epic mega round of trivia that's gonna be worth like 10 points for somebody to catch Zane.
Dude,
But Zane can still be a part of it.
Put up a challenge, but Zane just steamrolled him too.
Yeah.
So.
Yep, that's true. Yeah.
I can bring up something from the last segment if we're just killing time.
Yeah, go for it.
So it's about a year since the trucker protest, which seems like one of the few successful protests. Like people kind of go back and forth on whether Vietnam actually ended, the protests actually ended the Vietnam War. And then it's kind of obvious that, Antifa burning crap down doesn't really do anything except harden their resolve to do it anyway. But the trucker protest, it kind of got broken up. And then 2 weeks later, the mandates in Canada ended. And I feel like that was sort of just we can't do it immediately. But, 2 weeks later and it's done.
Now Trudeau got divorced because there was enough stuff about, the Man Boy Love Association and his affiliation with it,
Yep.
caused a rift in his marriage. I don't really wish that on anybody, but, that's a fact now. And also now, if you live in Canada, you can't share links on Facebook.
There you go. Yep.
Yeah, no news on Facebook.
You can't buy weapons either. It's insane.
Wow.
I do find that interesting that that you might be right. That's one of the biggest successful protests maybe ever.
I would go with Bundy standoff.
What?
What?
The
What did
Bundy
it accomplish? I really don't remember. But
Yeah, I don't remember
at
either.
the ranch in Nevada.
I don't remember.
Well, I remember what
they-
happened.
They had a
but
standoff.
Did they got their way?
They had a standoff against the OG BLM, the Bureau of Land Management, the federal government wing that enforces
The
land
worst
rights.
BLM.
Right.
Yeah.
The Bundy family stood off because they were having a land right dispute about grazing rights on some of their property.
What Bundy?
Not Ted.
Ted Bundy and no, the guy. I think the guy's name was Ted Bundy, wasn't it? And it was
No,
Cliven
it's like
Bundy.
Cliven Bundy.
Yeah, Cliven Bundy was the one that got murked. They had a drone take him out. But yeah, it was the Bundy Ranch standoff. And this is oddly enough when I was in school getting my degree for surveying.
Yeah.
I even asked a
Cliven Bundy's
question on the
alive.
forums about that, and they almost kicked me out of the class. They were like, "We're not discussing this." I was like, "Okay, thought we were here to learn about land rights."
Interesting.
You had the forbidden knowledge.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I was a great student to have for a college professor, I'm sure.
Oh, I bet.
There we go. That's the infamous scene right there. But anyway, so the deal was
Wait, so one question real quick. The guy with the gun, he's a protester, right?
no,
that's
That's
law
a cop.
enforcement. Yeah.
that's a BLM
Okay.
officer. Which, by the way,
So who's this
With a
chick to
big
the right?
knife, too.
She's a
Uh,
journalist.
That's either his wife or she just has a penchant for a man in uniform. I don't know.
I just remember both sides had guns, so I kind of always assumed that this guy was just a
But
protest sniper.
the Bundy Ranch folks actually had more guns and better guns and more people. But that is a federal officer right there. He is there to enforce the land rights of the federal government.
The federal government has no land rights.
Well, exactly.
You tell them.
Especially if you're the Bundy family out there on their ranch, because their deed to their land rights. Yeah, exactly.
Definitely
their deed to their land rights predated the BLM ever being formed. It actually predated the whole state. So they were like, we basically got our land rights from the Indians out here. Like, who are you to say I can't leave my cattle down there? And the whole thing really got started because he was doing controlled brush fires around a creek so his horses could get to the creek.
Right.
And they were telling him he couldn't burn the woods down. He said, screw off, this is my land. And then they said, well, we're the federal government. And he says, okay, well, come find out. And they did. And they found out.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, a couple of his sons are now dead. But by God, they backed off.
It was from a different one, right? They took over a building in a different state. I forget, like Oregon or something, or Idaho.
And that was the whole. Yeah, they did kind of. They got this bloodlust after they won, and then they tried. Oh, well, let's push the limits. Let's see if I can help my friend secure his ranch land rights. And
come on, just take the victory. Just take the victory. That gum.
Which, by the way, Cliven Bundy's alive, so he's not. I guess the drone thing was a rumor that they were going to go drone them.
Well, there was drone footage of one of his sons being pulled over by the FBI, which doesn't do traffic stops, but it was drone footage. And you see, this federal officer pulling out his vehicle on the side of the road. There's snow everywhere, and takes him out of the car. They exchange some words. Pop, pop, pop. Cop drives off and leaves him.
Jeez. So, okay, well, that's fun.
But ultimately, they won.
Yeah.
In the wise words of Kenny Rogers, you got to know when to hold them and when to hold them.
I believe that's in War and Peace, actually.
Yeah, I think Dostoevsky wrote that book.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to our second story of the night. Zach, go ahead and pull that up. Exclusive from the Daily Wire. Leaked NSA document reveals massive woke glossary pushing critical race theory, gender ideology at Intel agency. So I read this thing. There's some horrifying things in here. There's also some not so surprising things.
I was just going to say, is any of it a surprise, though?
Some of it's a surprise, some of it's not.
Can you scroll back up? What the hell is transmisogyny?
Yeah, so, that's down at the bottom.
Misogyny against trans women, I guess.
I'm offended by even reading that word.
All right, well, we'll get
That's
to
white fragility, don't you know?
Hey, we're going to get to white fragility. Okay. Actually, I'll just go ahead and define it right here as per the NSA. White fragility, the state in which even a minimum amount of racial stress becomes intolerable, triggering a range of defensive moves in white people. These moves include the outward display of emotions such as anger, fear, and guilt, and behaviors such as argumentation, silence, and leaving the stress-inducing situation. So the only three things you can do in an argument. These behaviors, in turn, function to reinstate white racial equilibrium. Racial stress results from an interruption to what is racially familiar.
The thing about that definition is that's masterful in that they get to make a series of claims. And if you make any counterclaims, they just use that as proof of their own claims.
Yep. Yeah, exactly right.
Because they're like, to them saying their own position isn't argumentation. It's just statement of their, their belief, which according to them, it's not even a belief. It's just a fact. But you stating your own opinions about that, well, now you're arguing. Now you are just a fragile white person because you dare to have an opinion that's different from the opinion that they're stating.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
The way I maintain white equality, though, is I put raisins in potato salad.
Perfect.
And complain about mayonnaise being spicy.
That's the best way I can think of to do that. Here's their definition of white privilege. refers to the unquestioned and unearned set of advantages, entitlements, benefits, and choices bestowed on people solely because they are white. An exemption of social, political, and/or economic burdens placed on non-white people, benefiting from societal structuring that prioritizes white people and whiteness. Generally, white people who experience such privilege do so without being conscious of it. This whole thing, y'all, I mean, they define whiteness as well. A broad social construction that embraces the white culture, history, ideology, racialization, expressions, experiences, epistemology, emotions, and behaviors, all in order to reap material, political, economic, and structural benefits for those socially deemed white.
All right.
I mean,
have y'all ever used your privilege?
I try to use it all the time, but I'm told I have none, so I can't use it.
I mean, what's the purpose of having it if you don't ever get to use it, right?
Yeah, I mean,
before we start despairing too much about this, any company or any organization that has an HR department that's staffed with a bunch of people who majored in Russian literature is going to produce documents like this. And it doesn't necessarily mean that anybody else in the organization cares about it or follows it. If this is just obviously there are organizations that have really bought into it, and it's not a good place to be if you're not buying into the leftist ideology. But there are plenty of other places that have, diversity training that probably have documents like this. But it's more of a check the box exercise to prevent the company from being sued. Correct. Or just to give the HR department something to do. And it's not necessarily indicative of everybody at the company buying into it. So just want to put that out there.
Right. Yeah, no, and I have no intention on this getting me down whatsoever. I find this hilarious and idiotic. Here's the definition of transmisogyny, Steve.
Okay, here we go.
The intersection of this whole thing is intersectionalism of transphobia and misogyny, defined as the irrational fear of, aversion to, or discrimination against transgender people. Transmisogyny is often directed at trans women in particular. So it's slightly different than transphobia, which is a fear or hatred of persons perceived to be transgender and or transsexual.
Is there transmisandry?
Wait
question.
A minute.
I mean, I can't find that.
Am I equally represented here? That's all I want to know.
Yeah, no, that's hard. I don't know.
Or am I advocating too hard for white equality?
So, I mean, some of this is...
I have a question about this definition.
Yeah.
If you are specifically transphobic to female trans members, but is it you transition to female? So, but then you're recognizing that they are female. So it's you know what I mean? Or is it the other side of that?
But it's the side you just said. Yeah.
Well, then, so you're recognizing them as female and then specifically phobic to that, even though that you would think a transmisogynist would still call them male.
You would think.
I'm confused, but
that's
whatever.
Confusing. Brian says, you mean you all aren't taking advantage of your free lattes that you get for white privilege?
Oh,
Brian,
yeah.
Don't forget about the discounts on UGG boots, by the way.
Gosh, if I'd have known about all this, I'd have been doing this the entire time.
Yeah.
I probably got out of a DUI once.
The 10th donut free loyalty card at Dunkin' Donuts is only 9 donuts if you're white. It's only 8 donuts if you're a white cop.
That's why all the others get diabetes first.
There's a definition of pangender, which is someone whose gender identity is comprised of all or many gender identities and expressions.
As any pan-rooted word, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I feel transmisogynized because transmisandry is not on the list.
Wait, there's something called passing privilege.
Oh.
There's variation in the degree to which medically and or socially transitioned people are recognized as their correct gender, i.e. passing, and this comes with various context-dependent levels of privilege.
Oh, passing as your targeted gender? Is that what that is that
How
what
would
it means?
you even know what this means? Is that what that means?
No, it means that it means that if you're white, people are more likely to let you in front of them on the road.
See, and I went to road in my mind.
Well, look, I know this guy wasn't an American at the time of his prime here, but what would Alan Turing do?
Turing, like the
What
Turing
Alan
test.
Turing, like the Turing test guy, the guy who
Yeah,
invented the
like the
machine
guy
that
that
took
cracked
down
the
the Nazi
Enigma
code.
code that was killed
Yeah.
because he was gay.
I completely forgot he was killed because he was gay.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
his government murdered him because he was gay.
Yeah, after
What
being
government?
a hero.
Yeah.
Britain.
Was it? What?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah,
I don't
no,
know
he
Well, he might have been like forced sterilized and like succumbed to like wounds after that.
he was definitely forced sterilized.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
But,
he got forced on some drugs that made him go crazy, and then he killed himself.
What year was this? That's barbaric.
It was after World
Right
War
after
I.
World War II.
It was World War. He cracked
So
the
we-
Enigma
Wait,
code.
I thought it was World War One where he
No,
cracked-
it was
no, it was
World
World
War
War
II.
Two. It was World
Yeah.
War. Yeah.
Why
That-
would they
that movie
bother
was
force
mediocre.
sterilizing a gay man? Number one. And then also, shouldn't his genes be the one to be passed on?
Yeah,
He's
wait.
a genius.
Yeah.
You're a genius person. Also, isn't the argument that it's a choice, not a genetic thing? And if he's only having sex with men, it won't matter.
Oh
and
no
if
no,
he-
no no!
Shouldn't you promote the idea
It
of
was
him having
in
sex?
science books, dude. Like I've got my dad's science book. I'll try to break that out from when he was in school back in the 50s and 60s. They taught it was a genetic malfunction that made you gay.
I made an
Like,
assumption
it was-
there again, assuming that like the whole like choice thing.
The
was, like,
choice
a
thing did
factor.
not enter the vernacular until like the mid 80s.
Oh, see, I didn't.
Sounds like
know
you're
that.
not trusting the science.
So we
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
Oh, it's like fashion. So it like makes it circles back after 30 years or something.
Right,
Like,
right.
Okay.
Y'all, we need to start trying to abide by some of these rules. We need to definitely start implementing tokenism. So we just need to find a random black guy to come on the show every time. He just can sit in the corner.
I feel black this week.
What is transculturation? The process by which a person adjusts to another cultural environment without sacrificing their own cultural identity. That
Wait,
sounds
which is better in this?
well, that sounds
I
like
feel
a
like
good
I sacrificed my cultural identity by listening to that.
It sounds like what people should be doing if they move to the United States.
What is
Right?
the promoted idea? To or to
And
not?
what does
let
any
go
of this
your-
have to do with national security or intelligence gathering or processing?
Well,
Nothing.
the more that they're doing that's not related to intelligence gathering, the better off we'll be, probably.
I feel
So-
less
So
intelligent
at first,
talking
like,
about this.
I really had my doubts. Like I saw the reports. What was it, like 5-6 years ago? Right? You had this guy. What was his name? Like Dr. Robert Malone, that was coming out talking about the Google algorithms and how they're gaming the elections and this, that, and the other. And then he was one of the guys that was coming out and saying that like Germany has literally reactivated the Stasi to start surveilling social media posts. But now today, you've got Nikki Haley, a Republican presidential candidate, talking about we shouldn't have any anons on social media. You should have to register with your name, and there should be no anon status.
Yeah, she's
And then, but you also have New York Governor Hochul, who already launched a task force doing this crap. So, like, you can have an anonymous, screen name, but the
right.
state of New York, if your IP address is in New York, the state of New York knows who you actually are and will dox you to the local police department.
Jeez.
What if you have a good VPN that's still
They
Well, maybe
It depends on the.
this is the
VPN.
state we're talking about, so they're 10 years behind.
right?
But it's that whole thing, and when they say that the Stasi's literally been reactivated, that's not really a lie. Like, there's actually people that were in the Stasi that are consulting these folks on how to monitor Facebook posts.
Hmm.
That's great. That's fun.
Yeah.
Here's
Which,
one that shows
odd
that
correlation too, since we're doing a lot of like World War II throwbacks tonight.
Yeah.
Odd correlation. Joseph Stalin's newspaper, okay, called Pravda. You know what that translates to in English?
Truth.
truth.
Yes,
War
sir.
and Peace.
Yeah, and then Trump launched Truth Social. Like, bad optics, bro.
Oh man, I'm surprised he didn't launch a book called My Struggle or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
That is so good.
I like how in one of these there's a definition, and then obviously the editor was more woke, so they added a note. It says male-bodied, a person who is assigned male at birth. Note, though this is occasionally still used, this term is very problematic as it genders bodies non-consensually and plays into cis sexism, and in parentheses, in that a flat chest or a penis, for example, are considered inherently male. Like, what are we reading here?
I'm pretty sure that's like one of the definitions of what it is.
So that's one of the United States intelligence agencies, folks, denying facts.
Yep.
You know,
I mean, I guess when you're spying on the entire United States, you have to know what you're reading when you're reading everybody's chats. Like, what the hell are all these blue hairs talking about? I need a glossary for that.
They need like a translator.
Elizabeth makes the point. Having a VPN in and of itself makes one suspect.
Well, and like having the Tor browser, like you're going to stick out like a sore thumb because they're monitoring everyone on your block, and you're the one dude that doesn't have data transmitting in and out.
I go for the middle ground. I use like Brave or something so that it's like kind of like a little bit better, but not like so much where they're like, wait a minute, this guy knows what's up. You know?
Yeah, like you totally go dark and like, wait a second, we have an address that just went dark.
Yeah.
You know, are they asleep?
Do you guys know? Sorry, I didn't know you were still.
Right. Go ahead.
Do you guys know who Blair White is?
Yeah,
she's trans person. That
She's been on a lot of libertarian stuff.
I was wondering, so I was going to ask you. I've seen her on a few things, whatever. I say, her about her or whatever. Like, but I feel like she's cool enough that like she kind of rolls with whatever. But I would love to talk to her. Like, I feel like I would want.
We had
her
Sara
on.
Higdon on. I don't know if you were around for that episode, Alden, but we had Sara Higdon on, and she's trans woman in the liberty movement. She's full on libertarian. Like doesn't subscribe to any of these woke BS things.
And so many don't. And I would be really curious. I might even dig back through our annals and find that episode or whatever because I wasn't here for that one.
Yeah, she'll be at convention.
That's
I'm gonna
cool,
have to look up annals in this glossary.
Yeah. Be careful what you type in there.
Yeah, it's two N's.
Two N's.
Yeah.
But Blair White and
Do
Michael
image
Malice
search.
are really good friends. So that she's been on his show before. And
I would be curious to see, their points of view on this. And I feel like a lot of this is kind of that squeaky wheel thing where there's like a handful of people that have these extreme opinions, and there's a lot of other really just chill people that are like, don't, agree with this and don't agree with like government level, like forcing censorship on these things, or whatever. Even especially, coming from someone like of the, minority population in this case, whatever, because like we're 5 white guys and no one cares what we think apparently, but
I care what you think, Alden. I care.
Well, my wife doesn't. So yeah.
Right? Yeah. Same here. Yeah. But no,
Elizabeth says going dark negatively affects one's credit score in China.
I'll bet it does. Yeah.
Here's a new word that I've never heard of: lookism. Can anybody define lookism before I'm going
to say bias in favor of people that are more attractive.
Construction of a standard for beauty and attractiveness and judgments made about people based on how well or poorly they meet the standard.
There we go.
Okay.
Isn't that a South Park episode?
I see you hitting me with that lookism. What you doing tonight?
That lookism.
You gave me that lookism.
Oh, they still have Latinx in here. Oh my God.
Which, by the way,
did that ever catch on? Is that a thing?
No, it's not a thing. They hate it.
Latin people hate it.
Latin culture, from what I understand, and this is in a broad brushstroke sense, or whatever. I mean, the language is
based
masculine
on
and feminine. Like
yes,
it's
based on masculine and feminine.
I was taking my 7-year-old son to a local Mexican restaurant a couple months ago. We walk in, and it was like a big sign on the front door. We are a Latinx restaurant, and he looks at it and he goes, "Dad, what Pokemon is that?"
The hilarious thing about Latinx is that whoever came up with the word apparently forgot
just
that
Latin.
There's already a gender neutral form of the word, which is just Latin.
Latin. Yeah, I was going to bring up the same point.
It's the person making the same mistake as Jake did at the top of the episode when he was trying to figure out what the verb
conspire
form of conspiracy is, where you were like conspiration, but it was just
conspiratorialize.
No, I maintain that it wasn't conspire. We're not conspiring to do anything. We're pointing out conspiracies. So we're conspiracizing.
Spiral looking.
Gosh.
Conspiro the Dragon.
Well, we're definitely spiraling, that's for sure.
We're definitely doing that.
Yeah, we're not doing ourselves any favors.
Anyway.
That's always for sure.
Yeah, and Daily Wire was the only one that had this. I found it super interesting. I mean, it's not surprising, most of it. I mean, most of it, we've heard most of these definitions before, and it's an organization that big is going to have idiotic things like this because you can only drive fast as, what is it? The speed limit is like the slowest person or the dumbest person or whatever that dumb quote is.
Well, hey,
unless there's no cops.
Unless there's no cops.
I mean, getting with
Cyclists.
over the top regulations and things like that. There's a subdivision here in Peachtree City, Georgia. I will find these protective covenants that are in the declaration, the deed that created this whole subdivision and the HOA and all that kind of stuff. They were saying if any of the regulations herein are unconstitutional, they will expire 25 years after the date of the last known descendant of Queen Elizabeth II. And you would not believe how common that is for residential subdivisions here in Georgia.
That's crazy.
What?
Yeah.
So
it's just one of those things. It's like a standard clause from English common law from the 1600s that we still use today.
Oh, that'll.
I'm like, we fought a war,
yeah.
So the descendants of Queen Elizabeth don't freaking matter. Like,
Yeah,
what
that's
happened
wild.
here? Did we win or not?
That's some interesting like surveyor trivia. That's interesting.
Yeah.
All right, Zane, do you have anything to bring us back down to earth before we move on to the next topic?
Ground us, Zane.
So, I mean, I think what Stephen is getting at is that in contracts like that from a long time ago, there would be certain provisions that would be in effect until X amount of years after the last person who is currently alive had died. And it was essentially just the legalese version of this provision will remain in effect for a very long time, but not forever.
Well, but the weird thing is, like, it's specifically worded that even if it's unconstitutional, it's going to outlast that. Like, you can't strike it down, even if it's unconstitutional. It's going to outlast the last known descendant of Queen Elizabeth II, which, is Prince Harry still one of those? I don't know.
Interesting.
So, hey, did those covenants just expire last year? Sweet. I'll go tell some people they can build a fence now.
All right.
It's like
weird that that's still in use, though.
The moment that those actually expire is like really a weird moment where you're like, wait a minute. Legally, this is done? This is gone?
Right.
All of a sudden, like 150 years later, some crazy thing. Like,
I mean, this is essentially what happened with like the UK and Hong Kong, where in the 1800s, the British signed a 99-year lease for Hong Kong with China, with the idea being 99 years, that's pretty much forever, right? And then the 1990s come around, and it's like the 99 years are up, and China's like, we want Hong Kong back, please.
That's like a big fuck you from the people that wrote it. We're like, well, we won't be alive, so someone else's problem.
Can you imagine if every law was written like that here in the States?
Oh, it's so great.
Oh, gosh. If you had to redo the entire law after like 20 years.
It'd be so great. Because if my grandson is such a numbnuts, he can't preserve what I left him, then he should lose it.
This is like, I'm picturing like lawmaking in the Idiocracy movie, like milieu,
exactly
Yeah.
Brian says there's a bond from 1624 still paying interest.
It's the East India Trading Company or something.
Yeah.
I think I had heard of that, where there are a couple bonds that are like called perpetuities, where they never pay back the principal, but they just will continue paying interest for forever.
Those are white privilege bonds.
Perfect. All right, let's go on to my favorite topic, Zatch. Here we go.
Try to carry a gold bar through an airport, they won't let you through, right? In fact, the assumption would be you're a criminal, you stole the gold, and they would just take it and keep it. Now, try to carry $100,000 of cash through the airport. You can put it in a bag, and as you're walking through the TSA check or the X-ray machine, just nonchalantly say to the officer, yeah, I'm carrying $100,000 of money onto the airplane. Now, not only will you not get through, they'll just take your money, and the assumption will be you stole it. So cash is a unit of control. Now, put $100,000 in a bank and try to wire it to someone, or just take it out and they're going to ask you why. Tell them it's none of their business. Try to send it to someone privately, a numbered Swiss bank account, right? See how that works. That won't work, right? That's a system of control. Bitcoin is the one network you can't control. Nobody can control Bitcoin. If you're insecure about being able to own your own money, do you own it? And can you actually use it without asking somebody's permission? Then the solution is not gold, it's not silver coins, it's not stacks of cash, it's not money in a bank in the US, it's certainly not money in a bank in Lebanon, Argentina, anywhere in Africa. The one network that you have that gives you a decent chance of owning your own money and then being able to spend it the way you want is Bitcoin.
All right. So that is Michael Saylor. He is a fantastic one to follow if you're into Bitcoin at all, if you're into anything with money, crypto, any kind of currency. He's a fantastic, super smart guy. His company has bought tens of millions of dollars of Bitcoin. So he puts his money where his mouth is. And
everyone knows the real currency is Pokemon cards. That's if you put a bag full of Pokemon cards, you'll go anywhere.
That's why Logan Paul made himself one, right?
See?
What? He did?
Oh, yeah.
I'm telling you, it's Pokemon cards.
Everyone knows that the real currency are those Bored Apes drawings.
Dude, that whole NFT market dried up so fast. Who's talking about NFTs anymore? Who's buying NFTs? Are NFTs worth anything?
You can screenshot those things. Like, it's not...
Yeah, but you don't have the certificate. It's not a contract.
Oh, whatever. Okay, yeah. Just like
I'm
Napster.
kidding. I'm not
you don't have the
defending
ID3 tag on your MP3 file. Whatever. It's still the music.
NFTs made me so angry because everyone was using them to be like, NFTs are stupid. True. Therefore, all crypto is stupid. Therefore, Bitcoin is stupid. Extremely untrue.
Right.
Like people, people that aren't as knee deep in this stuff as we are were very much unable to tell the difference between scam NFTs and Bitcoin, and they're
right.
All of this is a scam. When it's actually no, drawings of gorillas are obviously scams, but this extremely hard money that isn't subject to the control of a central bank, very much not a scam.
It's like setting up like a false axiom for comparison or whatever.
I mean, I went on a podcast the other day where we were talking about crypto for a while, and this guy is a normie. He's not a libertarian. He votes independently. He has voted Republican, voted Democrat. He's in in the political world and all that, but he's just a normal dude. And he didn't know what the difference between Bitcoin and crypto was. He just thought crypto was Bitcoin. And so
rectangle and a square.
Technically true.
No,
Bitcoin is the only cryptocurrency. If you're a maxi, it's the only legitimate.
Hazel
one
has
anyway.
entered
the only legitimate one.
It's rectangle and a square. A square is still a rectangle. Bitcoin is still crypto, but not all crypto is Bitcoin.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And so you're right. I mean, there's a ton of education. People do not understand what hard money is and why crypto is, or why Bitcoin is so valuable and why people need to actually start investing in it. I thought what Michael Saylor did here was give a really good practical demonstration and practical example of why all of these things that we use these days won't work when you really, really need them to, or aren't actually, you're not actually free to keep them wherever you want to go. Like your cash, if you're passing through an airport, isn't your cash anymore. They can confiscate it just based on suspicion, and you're never getting it back. And
it doesn't even have to be an airport. It could be driving down the road.
Yep.
I think there
if you
was
have more than like 10 grand or something like that, it's like seizable or
whatever they decide.
Yeah. The bank, you can't just like if you want to withdraw more than $10,000 from the bank, they won't just give it to you that day.
Yeah.
Minimum 2 days.
I did like 11
It
one
takes
time just to be a turd.
forever. It takes so long. And with Bitcoin, man, I'm gonna be preaching the positive sides of Bitcoin until the day that I freaking die, because it is what the future will be as far as currency goes. Like, it is the hardest money that has ever been created. It is the easiest to transport. It is the easiest to hold. It is the easiest to retain. It is the easiest. It retains its value. It increases in value based on the dollar, because the dollar is tanking.
On purpose.
Well, I mean, it's a 110-year tank at this point. So
yeah,
they've been taking their sweet time, but just the positive sides of Bitcoin, I cannot preach enough. And I wish it was easier to convince people to just hear me out, hear the case for Bitcoin. But man, it is so hard because of people like Sam Bankman-Fried, any like Shiba Inu, Dogecoin, all these idiot things, NFTs. It is so hard to get people to listen.
Doge killer.
What?
The Doge killer.
Shiba, yeah.
Let's see. Brian says, I think it was Reason that was talking about a bathhouse that was using Bitcoin. Yes, that is 100% correct. There is a
that's smart.
Yeah, there's a place that has a bunch of hot tubs and like heated pools and stuff where they're using Bitcoin miners to heat the water.
That's if you're gonna create the heat anyway. That's super smart.
I have
John
I have
McAfee
two heaters.
And I want to track this down too, because John McAfee, when he was still alive, before he actually went on the lam, before he ran for president,
another person who said, "I will not commit suicide." By the way,
absolutely,
before he died,
but he did enough drugs that he probably would have. Anyways, he took over. There was a company that was hubbed in Tennessee called MGT Technologies. They did like crappy gambling video games, like sports betting type things. And he took it over, gutted it out, and redubbed it. So it was still MGT, but it was McAfee Global Technologies. And all of a sudden,
that's funny.
It's not a fantasy sports betting app anymore. It's cybersecurity and Bitcoin mining. And
there we go.
The SEC had a fit. They were like, no, you can't do this. And
I love it.
That was why he went on the lam from the IRS, because they were telling him he owed all this money because he needed to reform the company. They had him delisted and they put him on the OTC market. And I may or may not have lost some money on that. But he buried a bunch of Bitcoin miners in North Georgia. He reinvested, and it was.
Are we doing a treasure hunt?
Feed.
Buried. Like, where are these?
Can we do a Libations episode where we just do a treasure hunt in North Georgia?
Well, yeah, we should be able to find these things. Like, he posted.
I can dig a hole.
Grumpy says there's an EV car that will mine while you drive.
That's my God, that's amazing.
So I have two of these. They're called heat bits. They're basically heaters and air purifiers that mine Bitcoin. And the heat keeps your house warm.
That's smart.
They're freaking genius.
Unless you live in Florida, it's smart.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to live in Montana, and I keep it on year round here, but I just put them in my basement where I never go. So
yeah, I like it.
Raking in the sats year round. It's fantastic.
No, I love the idea of having that, taking that excess entropy heat waste, and turning it into a use. That's a great idea.
Absolutely.
Does anybody remember the name of John McAfee's shitcoin?
Mm-mm.
It was called Whacked.
Oh no! That has a whole new meaning now.
Of course it was. Oh
I texted him one night because he did that interview while he was running for president, and he gave that guy his cell phone number.
Yeah.
I texted him. He texted me back, or somebody texted me back.
Really?
And
what?
We had some good conversations.
Interesting.
That's crazy.
That is wild. Zach, let's play this next video and then show Shane's tweet on it.
If we are to be successful, CBDCs could not be fragmented national propositions. To have transactions more efficient and fairer, we need systems that connect countries. In other words, we need interoperability. And for this reason, at the IMF, we are working hard on the concept of a global CBDC platform to trade and to manage risk. If we are to be successful,
all right. So this is
CBDCs
the new managing director, Kristalina Georgieva of the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, is working on a global CDC platform, suggesting it could become mandatory for everyone worldwide. Shane Hazel retweeted this, said, "Get out of fiat. When they flip the switch, your wealth will be gone if inflation hasn't taken most of it already." Yeah. And
Well,
they've been floating CBDCs.
The US dollar has already been supplanted from a logistical standpoint. We've talked about this before. So, your FedExes, your DHLs, your UPS, US dollars, all the native fiat currencies are converted to the IMF currency, the SDR, the strategic drawing right.
Interesting.
Before it's done into anything. So, I mean, you can look at your UPS label, and it will actually mention sometimes the SDR of your shipping, and that's the cost.
Interesting.
So, I don't know anything about that.
Well, because it's, Forex markets are so rigorous and they run basically 24/6.
Yeah.
That was the one way that they were able to transcend, the global Forex markets. And so that way, if you pay your shipping and say it takes, 30 hours, to ship something from Georgia to the Philippines, the currency hadn't changed so much that you didn't pay your shipping fee properly.
Right.
What's the currency for the Philippines?
Fucking coconuts? I don't know.
I think it's a bot. I'm not a
bot. Like Thailand is a bot. It's Thai bot.
Well, I think it's actually it's actually heads of your local drug dealer, right?
Ah, I got you.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. There's plenty of those to go around. Yeah.
That's
so much really hard money, actually. That's really good.
Coconuts are a hard money.
Apparently, it's really the Philippine peso.
Okay. Is that right?
Philippine peso.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Thanks, Jamie.
Thanks, Jamie.
I just know from my sermon this past Sunday that it's a 28-hour flight from Georgia to the Philippines. So that's how I use that analogy. But,
Zane, what are your thoughts on the whole idea of them trying to implement CBDC worldwide?
Very bad. Very, very bad.
Very bad. Very sad. We're all going to die.
Much worse than the NSA's 30-page document on transgenderism. That's for sure.
Yeah, fair enough. My question always is, what is the likelihood of this happening? And if there is a good likelihood, what's the timetable? Because that's the real question: is how long do we have to get out of start convincing people to get out of fiat and go into things?
So we have just from Latin America, we have 1 million people a year coming in to this country across the southern border. Now, you add to that Chinese immigrants, African immigrants, all this kind of they're being dispersed. Now, part of it is just because the poor folks were led with a carrot of there was a radio commercial, there was a billboard, there was a sign, they were handed a flyer. Sally Struthers waddled her way over and told them about it. That come here and we give you free stuff. We'll give you a bus ticket to anywhere. We'll give you a plane ticket to anywhere. If you look like an Indian, we'll give you a Dairy Queen or a hotel. Any kind of free loan you want.
For a Senate seat.
Sure, exactly. So that's why they're kind of flocking here. Canada went through this in the early 80s, and believe it or not, back then the Canadian Parliament was actually pretty based because they were actually standing up and saying that China is trying to culturally debase us. They are flooding us with their pores. They're coming over here with the mission of inculcating their culture into Canada, and we have to stand up against this. We have to stop.
Police stations here in the U.S.
What's that?
They have police stations in the U.S.
There
China
you go.
Does,
because we never threw up those roadblocks. We're the melting pot. And until the last 30, 40 years, taxes weren't that big of a problem. I mean, they were a problem since they were implemented, but in the last 40, 50 years in particular, they've really gotten out of hand. But we haven't really had anybody that's been a stalwart saying, don't let them in, or,
Right.
let's filter them in.
Right.
It's either been let them all in or let none of them in. There's never been like hey, we got to have some common sense immigrant regulation.
Right.
That talk has never really happened. And you've got the Muslim nations that if they're subject to the OIC, which, by the way, the Muslims have their United States.
The frick is the OIC?
That's the Muslim United States.
Oh,
that's why Obama had this gaffe of saying like, he's been to 50 states. He's got like 4 more to go, or 2 more, whatever it is. It's 50 something, 52, 54. I forget exactly how many there are there. But that they were saying he was because he went to Hawaii.
Are you saying this is like
when
the
he was
50
campaigning?
states?
When he was campaigning for his first presidential term, this is one of the reasons why they thought that he was like this Muslim plant, because he was like, I've been to 50 states. I've got 4 more to go. And because there's 54 states in the OIC.
I'm not even able to say this right. The organ is, wait, that's just organization. I can say that. I was trying to make that more complicated. The Organization of Islamic Cooperation, founded in 1969, has 57 members.
There you go, 57. Mm-hmm. So that's what it was. So like, Obama went to, so many states, and he's like, I've got 7 more to go. And they were like, can he not do math? And then someone was like, no, he's really talking about the Muslim states. But that was one of their dictated plans, because listen, don't forget, one of the tenets of jihad is the hijrah. They are there to take you over culturally. They will they will cross your borders, mate with you, have enough kids, but their culture remains. They are there to not assimilate. They are there to inject themselves. And once they hit a certain threshold of the population, whether it's 8%, 10%, 12%, that's up for speculation. Yeah. But once they hit a certain threshold of the population, that's when the bombs start going off. And so we have that going on, and China's doing the same thing. And then you also have the people above that like to pluck the strings,
aliens,
and convince the races we're against each other. We're not really against each other. We all just want to feed our families at the end of the day, be left alone. But white, red, yellow, black.
I'm against
white.
Dak Prescott. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I'm against him too. Eventually, he's going to have a game where he throws 5 interceptions in one game. It's going to tank his whole season. But so you got the people that lord above that just pluck the strings and convince all the different races and sects that they're against each other, when we're really not. But we're being played against each other on multiple levels 100%. Right now. And Sun Tzu taught us that you can't win a war on multiple fronts. That's the multiple front war that we're talking about, because the American military right now, we can entertain multiple theaters because we're doing it. We're in multiple places in the Middle East. We're we're in the South China Sea. We're all over the damn place. Like we can entertain theaters, war theaters, physical war conflict theaters across the world.
But if physical war is one front.
That's one front.
Right.
The war within is the one that we cannot win.
Yeah, my brother.
I actually read The Art of War about a month ago and really did not find it very insightful. It was really just saying a bunch of things that were really obvious.
Pesky's an idiot.
It was saying things like, in order to defeat the enemy, you must know yourself, but then proceeded to say that 5 more times without giving any advice about how you come to know yourself. And it's like, to win battles, you must have the appropriate strategy, but didn't go into very much detail about what appropriate strategies are. But I should really change my headline here to aggressively optimistic, because, even though I said a couple of minutes ago that it's very, very bad to plan to implement an international CBDC, and obviously if they succeed, that would be a big setback for liberty. However, a bureaucrat just saying that this is what they want is a long way away from them actually being able to do it.
Correct.
Like, this is a point I've made several times before, which is that people, the power elite wanted to go way farther with the lockdowns, the mask mandates, and the vaccination mandates than they were actually able to, not because 1% of the population is committed libertarians and we all did performed mass civil disobedience, but because there actually is a much broader swath of the population, not everybody by any stretch, but enough people that aren't hip deep in politics, but we're still willing to say no. We were maybe okay with a little bit of lockdown, but now we've had enough. So with the CBDCs, I feel like and I know I've said this before as well, but I'm hearing more and more like regular Republicans talking about CBDCs, which is really interesting because you would think it's such a wonkish topic. Only people on shows like this one would ever be talking about it.
Right.
But the threat of it does seem to have been placed in the popular consciousness, which I think is a good sign. And another thing here too is that libertarians tend to be very, we're always right about diagnosing the problems, and eventually the problems do come to fruition. And over the past 100 or so years since the Federal Reserve, it's just a fact the dollar has lost 97% of its purchasing power.
99.
So real calamities are happening, but I think there is kind of a tendency for us to make bold prediction about how the end of the world is coming in 2 years, and then it actually right after the first round of quantitative easing back in 2008 and 9. Yes, I know. Grumpy. That's something about myself that I know. But right after the first wave of quantitative easing, right after the financial crisis in 2009, when the Fed was printing a bunch of money, a lot of libertarian economists, including several economists that I greatly expect and greatly admire, were predicting double-digit increases in the consumer price index. So huge inflation that didn't really materialize. And again, after the COVID money printing, they've done tons of money printing, and we did see some serious inflation here too, but not quite as bad as what some people were predicting. So ultimately, the bad stuff is probably going to happen, but we have time, I think, to prepare ourselves, and I don't think that it necessarily is going to be a calamity. Governments have grown a lot in the past 100 years, and yet my life is a lot better today than it would have been 100 years from now.
Absolutely. Well, and with the optimistic approach, the same line that you're taking here. So, we have global hegemony, right? So if because if you buy into all the news, the global economy is collapsing, right? So if it's a bubble within a bubble within a bubble, and it's all global and it's all interconnected, all we have to do at that point is collapse last, right? And we maintain hegemony. So if there is going to be a global reset, then we're going to be at the top of it.
Interesting.
Why do you think?
Well, if we're the ones to pop the bubble, if we pop the other bubble first, there it is. And that's what's going on right now is these quiet wars. Everybody's putting pressure on each other while smiling and shaking hands with each other, and just saying, you might pop first. I don't know. You got the yellow vests. You got the Antifa. You got the Uyghurs. Whatever. Who's popping first?
All right. So here's a question: do you think that climate activists feel the same way that we do? Them knowing that there's a global catastrophe coming, us knowing that there is a economic catastrophe coming, and no one is listening or paying attention or doing things that
I'm going to say help. No, solely because the climate activists know right now that they're broke. They know that for a fact, and that's why they're pissed.
Interesting.
We don't even know it yet because I can still go buy a 6-pack. I can still go get a tank of gas. The lights are on in my house. My mom's not mad at me. So it's apples and oranges that way.
The kind of the difference is that, in our case, we can already point to, over the past 100 years, the dollar has lost 99% of the purchasing power, which on one hand is a complete catastrophe, but on the other hand, it's not like there was a single day where half of everybody's money became worthless. That's kind of why I can kind of stay optimistic, because it's slow enough that even if it gets a little bit faster than it is today, the rate at which, society and technology and standard of living increases is still faster than the rate at which, people's money is getting printed away. Whereas I think with the climate, first of all of the evidence of climate change that the climate activists can point to, I mean, some of it is fake, some of it is real. But with the real stuff, they're kind of in the same situation that I just said that we're in, which is that even if you take the part of the warming that is actually probably true, it would be better to continue to allow the warming because of how big of a catastrophe it would be if we tried to implement the draconian regulations that would take to stop the warming. Like stopping, like achieving the UN goal of limiting global warming to 1.5 or 2 degrees Celsius would be so calamitous in terms of, keeping people in extreme poverty, and limiting economic growth, shortening people's life expectancy, that doing that would be way worse than just letting global warming rip, dealing with the occasional extra hurricane, and letting ourselves essentially grow our way out of it.
On a global scale, I'm not going to acknowledge the validity of the climate activists until they acknowledge military weather weapons.
I think both can be true. There's so much here that I don't even know if my drunk brain can handle this. But
let's just pause on this. I think that was a fine place to end. I think, look, the biggest thing I think with libertarians being right about the economy and about how the dollar is going to collapse at some point, the issue is that you can provide zero time frame, and so people will just not believe you until it's too late. And that's been my biggest hurdle of talking to people about this kind of stuff is like, well, how long do we have? Well, I don't freaking know.
Hey, I'll tell you what, if you really want an accurate gauge of how long we have, ask your grandfather once a month. Are we in the end times?
I mean, my grandmother definitely thinks so right now.
Oh yeah. Oh, hey, look, we've met this other end of the prophecy. Look, we've done that since Revelation was written.
Yeah, but they're talking about a red heifer now, man.
So it's one of those things where it's
a pale horse and a red heifer.
All right,
you just got to know the signs to look out for. It could be next year, could be 5 years from now, could be 10 years from now, could be 50.
Yeah.
Here's the thing: you just have to live your life as though if it does happen, you won't miss a beat, or you can still maintain an acceptable way of life.
There you go.
And leave that for your kids, leave that for your grandkids. Make sure your kids know what you left and why, and leave it up to them. That's why contracts expire after 99 years, because if my grandkid is such a screw up that he can't maintain what he's left with, he deserves to lose it.
There you go.
I agree with Stephen on the point of like, enjoy your time while you have it regardless. I agree with Zane in the sense that don't promote the idea or allow your governments to constrict the average person through policy to solve a problem, because they're almost always wrong about things and it's only going to favor certain people and all that. And that's my short on it for tonight.
There we go. We've got one more story before we jump to the funny stuff. Let's watch this.
Want to hear? All right, I went on a little YouTube wormhole situation, and somehow, but I wound up on this video that was like, world's smartest kid thinks that CERN blew the world up in 2008. He thinks when they collided electrons, I believe, in the super collider, that they caused some crazy chain reaction that blew up the universe, but they also created an atom that weighed too much. And so what the kid winds up with is this theory of like, one atom weighing too much and if that being just enough to shift our universe into a parallel universe. Yeah, this is it right here. This kid.
Look at what it says there. He claims that CERN destroyed the universe during recent experiments, which has resulted in us living in a nearby parallel universe instead.
You're welcome, Eddie.
lot of people online that think this is an explanation for all the Mandela effect.
That's what I was
Yeah, it goes into stuff about the Mandela effect. How, like, there's like apparently a bunch of people who think Mandela died in prison,
Right.
and like there's as far as I know, he was released, became president of South America. And that's the universe I'm from, just personally.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say no.
Yeah, that's so shocking that you're gonna go say that.
Yeah,
well, Zane is actually the smartest kid in the world. So,
if you want to get into Illuminati symbolism, it's really weird that CERN's logo is
666.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Well, what I would think is even weirder is if the physics of black holes worked in such a way that we could magically be transported to a parallel universe in such a way that everything was the same except the name of the book series was the Berenstein Bears.
What do you
Fruit of the Loom
remember?
didn't have the cornucopia
Oh,
all of a sudden.
Yeah, that's crazy. 666,
Yeah, that's actually 666, and then their main courtyard has what is it? The Hindu god Shiva doing the Maharaj.
No, I can actually tell you why
dance.
the logo is shaped like that, which is that the shape of a particle collider is essentially that, where in order to get the particles to the high enough speed, it has to be extremely long. So you shoot it, and it starts off straight, and then it goes in a big loop.
You're just bolstering our argument that if this theory is correct, they had to use 666 to end the world with an explosion by smashing two atoms together.
Oh
there you go. And in the background, Shiva doing the Maharaj, the world-destroying dance.
Why do I even come on the show?
Actually, the question is, Zane, why do you stick around for the last 20 minutes?
Oddly enough, that pose Shiva was doing is oddly enough what women do when they forgot deodorant that day.
As a logo designer, I will say that you have to have the obvious, reason for something, which is like the shape of the accelerator. Like, I understand what the logo means, whatever, but you can also embed a secondary read, like a double entendre, like within a logo. So Zane's not wrong, but he's also like, there, you could have a layered second meaning to something.
Well, sure, but what
based off of the image.
There is a plethora of significance.
Yeah.
In their symbolisms with their logos, their parades that they host, their festivals they host, and the idols that they post outside of their main doorways.
Have you seen that weird video, like at night, like under that statue with the weird dance thing or whatever, that they do weird shit there at CERN?
Yes.
Yeah.
I honestly think that all of the weird stuff that they do with like the Shiva statue and like the pictures of them and like doing witchcraft or something, those photos are real. But I think that's just an epic troll by all the scientists there that are like, we've got all these weirdos to think we're ending the world. How about we throw them a bone and then sit back and have a laugh? That's what I think is most likely.
If that's a troll, then those scientists are the coolest scientists I've ever.
But like, did the scientists, like, who decided to put the Shiva statue there and why? Okay. In the initial,
I mean, a lot of scientists are Indian.
In Geneva.
Yeah,
all over the world, I would think.
It was, it was Oppenheimer's nephew. Okay,
I'm just saying the symbolism of Shiva, like himself or whatever, is interesting to get into with that. But
Zane, I got you covered, man. I got you covered.
No, I'm much too autistic for that. I've never had marijuana.
It's what you need. It's what you need. No, don't do it. I'm kidding.
I just found that to be super interesting. I'd never heard it was the Hadron Collider that.
You never heard the theory of that?
No, that caused us to go into a.
See, this is where I need you guys to ground me a little, because like I'm so deep into these things that I forget that there are people that haven't considered that's a possibility.
I've gone down this rabbit hole too.
Oh, okay, all right. So me and Steven,
the whole Mandela effect though is wild.
Particle physics gives me a hadron.
I mean,
man,
dude, the Mandela effect
stuff
is wild, because I told Nikki never heard of it. My wife never heard of the Mandela effect, and I told her, was there a cornucopia with Fruit of the Loom? And she was like, yes, of course.
Yeah.
There's not a freaking cornucopia.
That's where I learned what a cornucopia was.
But I remember distinctly there being one.
Yep.
When I was growing up.
Me too. I thought there was a weird brown witch hat in my underwear. I didn't understand what it was as a kid, I didn't know what it was.
So why does the cornucopia logo exist if they never used it?
So this is where it becomes this is the point of a potential split in reality into two, where there's the decision to put it in the logo and not. And
there we go. So if you were born at a certain time, you got these vaccine ingredients, and if you were born after this time, you got the other vaccine ingredients.
So I'm looking at the Fruit of the Loom logo now. I don't know, Zach, if you'd be able to pull it up, but my fed theory about why it's not a parallel universe is that right in the middle there's a apple that's kind of dark red. If you were just kind of glancing at the logo, I could definitely see you could mistake that shape and general color for a cornucopia, especially when just in general you often see fruits presented with a cornucopia.
This is the classic argument. Yes, I understand.
Snopes has it, but also says it was never there.
See,
but that is the logo that we remember.
That's what I remember.
There you go. So
exactly what I remember.
Snopes. You talking about the crazy cat lady?
What?
Snopes is not a reliable source. Snopes puts purposely fake articles on their website in order to catch people that plagiarizes them.
A dude and his wife and 12 cats.
Snopes has legitimately claimed that Mr. Ed was a zebra.
Yeah.
I don't know Mr. Ed.
But Snopes was a dude, his wife, and 12 cats in a loft apartment in New York City. And he cheated on her multiple times, and they got divorced.
With the cats.
Now it's just her. It's just this single divorced, angry, crazy cat lady in her loft apartment. That is Snopes.
Mr. Ed was a zebra?
What?
What?
Wow.
It used to be the case that Snopes fact-checked this claim and said that it was true in order to catch people that were plagiarizing their articles.
Oh, that's funny.
Perfect.
Interesting. All right. Well, we're going to move on to to just the funny things at the end of the show. I've got 5 things for us because we got to end smiling and giving Zane something to smile about rather than be annoyed.
I've been smiling this whole time.
I'll tell you something funny. So at the beginning of the week, it's all doom and gloom. If you read the financial news, the death cross. We've entered the death cross, guys. So it's the 50-day moving average and the 200-day moving average have crossed each other. So the 50-day has dipped below the 200.
Right.
And so now, the Dow Jones is supposed to lose 12% in the next 2 months, but it's still going up.
Technical analysis is a bunch of baloney. It's literally sorcery. I hate it.
That doji candle,
if anybody starts telling you about moving averages in the context of stocks, stop listening to them immediately.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. All right. Well, this first one, we've got an interviewer interviewing a deer in the wild. He's the deer saying, I think we have a pretty good chance this season. The average hunter is getting older and millennials think meat comes from stores. I found that to be hilarious. All right. Up next, here we go.
Come on.
Prison gates won't open.
That's perfect.
Whatever parent put that song to that clip is a genius. That was so good. Okay, so this was the first line of this is depressing, but the rest of it's awesome.
I think a guy should spend on an engagement ring.
I'd say at least like $100K.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Or you could buy an MRAP for $63,000. If you're not interested in MRAP, you could get a Chieftain main battle tank for $75K. I'd say that's a pretty worthwhile investment. Or if you really feel like splurging, You could get the Leopard 1 main battle tank from Germany, which would cost you $225,000. But if you're going to spend that on a ring, you might as well spend that on a tank. You can do a lot more with a tank than you can with a ring. Also, yes, for those of you that are asking and that are curious, who can own a tank?
Yeah, you can own a tank. Dude, I've seen so many videos where people go around and interview and ask chicks how much you should spend on an engagement. The numbers that these chicks are throwing out are freaking
the bigger question than who can own
idiotic.
a tank is who spends $100,000 on a ring. Like,
that's so dumb. Do not spend $100,000 on a ring unless you're a billionaire.
What was it? 2 paychecks was what I was told.
I heard 3 months salary.
You should pull a Ron Swanson.
Salary. Oh God.
Yeah.
Okay.
I spent I think like 3 days salary.
Yeah, there you go. Did you smelt it down a sconce like Ron Swanson? And
sadly, no. That would have been great, though.
People that buy things are suckers.
Exactly. Here we go. Here's second to last one. Oh.
You should get a light that you get to use 5 to 10 times a year. It counts how many times you use it, and then like once you use it 10 times, it won't turn on anymore. It is an emergency light, and it's for diarrhea. And it's when you're stuck in traffic and you're about to shit your pants, you throw it on the hood, you flip the light, and everyone has to honor that you're about to shit your pants and you need to get to the toilet. I also think the car horn, you should only get X number of uses per year on how many times you can honk your horn. Don't you think?
This guy's on fire. This guy's on fire.
I think you should.
He lost me at the horn.
This guy's on fire.
He had me at the diarrhea alarm for real.
Oh, and then my favorite thing. I think this restaurant is in North Georgia. Here we go.
Restaurant is currently under fire for a new rule they implemented. Toccoa Riverside Restaurant in Georgia is adding $50 to the bills of families who have loud and unruly children. And let me be the first to say thank you. I think every restaurant needs this policy because it is absolutely necessary. Sure, most families and their kids are well behaved and they won't even have to worry about this rule. But you and I both know there are some parents who are careless and brain dead, and they will let their kids cause a mess and ruin everyone's dining experience. I worked as a server for many years, and I hated it when an idiot parent wouldn't take control of their loud kids and leave horrible messes for me to clean up afterwards, which is why Toccoa Restaurant is the hero we need. So parents know there is a fee for disrupting the peace. If you don't have the balls to discipline your kids properly and get their behavior in check, either stay at home or don't have kids or pay the $50, you dickhead.
I like it.
I love it. There's also a spoof article that said it is now legal to trip kids running around a restaurant.
Hey, have you seen the Netflix movie Old Dads with Bill Burr?
No,
I have not seen it yet. No.
Okay, spoiler
with Bill Burr.
Yeah, Bill Burr directed it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, he's in it too.
Yeah.
And there's one scene where one of the kids is an absolute hellion, is chasing somebody around, like trying to like hit him with something. And he sticks his foot out and just trips him. And the other dad's like, dude. And he's like, it's a team sport. It'll be all right.
I love
That's
it.
great.
Bill Burr is so stinking funny, man.
He's
I love that
great.
dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, y'all. Well, thank y'all so much for listening and watching to listening to and watching the show. My goodness gracious. Cheers to everybody. Thank y'all for coming on the show. Love you guys.
Love you guys. Cheers.
Let's see. We got Free Georgia Podcast special episode coming out tomorrow at noon. We've got another Free Georgia Podcast with Tia Severino coming out on Monday night at 8 p.m. She's a journalist. She's awesome. She was at the Great Create this past summer. And then we have Liberty Libations again next Thursday at 8 p.m. I'm going to be out of town, or I'm not going to be podcasting for the entire month of December.
Next Thursday is Thanksgiving.
So we're probably not going to be doing Liberty Libations next Thursday. Don't tune in to Liberty Libations next Thursday.
No one should. Yeah. Anyway,
maybe we'll rerun an episode of something.
We could do a very short episode. I can give you guys like 20 minutes.
We'll all just come on with a leg of turkey and a drink and just each say one joke and leave. Like that'll be it.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of this idea. So let's see if we can work that out.
I could probably swing that.
Nice. All right, y'all. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. We really appreciate it. Y'all have a great week. We'll see you next time.
Cheers.